Hello and welcome back to the Hoarder Crafting Podcast. My name is Sasha and this is my little alcove of the internet where I like to talk all things crafty, lots of knitting and crochet, occasionally some sewing, jigsaws, sometimes cooking. I don't think I've ever actually spoke about my cooking on here, but this is my little crafty alcove of the internet. And today is episode 47. And I have, for the third week in a row, a finished object. But I will start with what I am wearing. This was one of my finished objects last week, but it hadn't been blocked. It is now blocked and completely finished. So this is my modified vest number 2 spring edition by My Favourite Things Knitwear. And it is modified in the fact I have raised the armhole by about 2 inches. In the pattern you join the underarm at the same point as this, which means the armhole's very low. I didn't want that with this one, so I've raised it. And I think this looks amazing. I do quite like the way I've styled this today with a silvery, slightly taupe coloured blouse. Please excuse the long sleeve t-shirt I'm wearing under the blouse. It's still relatively chilly here and this is quite a thin summery blouse. But this was made using the Mode at Rowan alpaca wool for the grey, and then the pink fluff was from Lottie Knits, her Halo lace in the colourway Foxglove. And I absolutely adore this. I've never been one for like holding 2 strands together before. I've done it a couple of times, but I've never really got the hype around it so much. I do here. I really like this. I think because I've used quite a bright, almost neon colour with a very neutral. Try and get that a bit closer. I think that's kind of more my jam. I will insert a picture here of my partner's zipper sweater man that I made about 3 or 4 years ago now. And that piece is wool and alpaca held double, both drops yarns. I can't exactly remember which ones. And he loves that. He would like another one. But I've never really been one for me. I think because they were both quite the same colour. But I love this and I love the look of it. It looks really nice and it fits quite well. I will say this is not a size inclusive pattern. I bought this pattern around the time it came out, I believe. Very early on in my garment making journey. But these days I do tend to go for more size inclusive patterns if they are bigger designers. But yeah, this is not size inclusive pattern, but it does fit me quite well. It did grow a little bit in blocking. I don't think I got a picture of this before I blocked it, but it did grow a bit. I also had to add a fair amount of length to this. I added about 5 inches of length and it hits me at just the right point. It's perfect. I adore this. And having had to buy another skein of the grey, I actually only have 5 grams of it left, so it was definitely needed, and yeah. So, yep. And now I should get into what I've been working on this week. It's been a very picky kind of week for me. I've been picking things up, putting things down. Been in a bit of a jumpy mood. So I will start with my one and only finished object. Well, I have a finished object. I also technically have another finished object. It was a tiny little patch. So my partner's zipper sweater man, funnily enough, he'd worn quite thin patch into the one elbow, and I didn't have any more of the yarn left to sort of like duplicate stitch to reinforce it. So I made him a patch that I sewed on, and then used the ends from sewing it on to weave through at the back to strengthen it. I shall insert a picture here of what the patch job looks like, because apparently he doesn't want to take it off to let me show it off in my podcast, because he'd be cold. So we'll let him off. Now, this finished object is going to look a little bit funny because it's got a combination of cables, lace and ribbing, and it has not yet been blocked. And that finished object is actually one of the 12 cast-ons I did. So I have another 12 cast-ons finished object. And I am definitely holding off for a minute so that all of you can place your guesses and see if you guessed correctly. But I have finished my glow hair hat. And do you see what I mean? But this looks a little bit funny because this does not look like an adult-sized hat at the moment. It's also because of the way the shaping is, it looks a bit like a certain lady's part that YouTube doesn't like you drawing attention to in YouTube guidelines. So, but I think once it's been blocked, it should kind of, yeah, it should shape up quite nicely. I did only finish this Monday night. This hat basically took 3 days to knit, because on the first day of cast-ons I did the entirety of the rib. I then spent like, I don't know, about 20 minutes on Sunday setting it up on the bigger needle and establishing the pattern, and then proceeded to knit the majority of it Monday morning at knit group. So it is quite a simple repeat, and you only do it like 4 times. I did kind of forget how quickly DK weight projects work up, especially when it's something this small. I will try it on for you. I will just say, because it hasn't been blocked yet, it does look a little bit funny. But I should try it on for you. I will apologise for my hair being a right mess afterwards, but there we go. There it is. So it's, I think it's supposed to have a bit more space at the top. But yeah, I'm gonna take that back off now. I made the ribbing an inch shorter. It calls for 6 inches of rib in the pattern. I only did 5 because I was worried about yarn consumption. Turns out I didn't need to bother because I have 20 grams of this left. So this, let's start from the beginning. The pattern for this is the Glow Hair Frost Hat by Stephen West. This was my very first ever Stephen West pattern, and I think I'll be making more of these and potentially trying some more of his other patterns. I really enjoyed knitting this. And the yarn is the Yarn Unique Sparkly Luxe Sock, which is 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 5% silver lurex, I believe, which is the sparkly strand running through it. And I held that double to make the DK weight for this pattern. The yarn itself is fingering weight. It's a very, very plump fingering weight though. And this is knitted up lovely. Unfortunately, I'm not 100% on what the colour is. The skein I had didn't have the colorway name on it. I think it was Malachite. I think I can find it on the website, because I think I've linked to it before, but I'll try and find it and put the name here. But yep, this is my finished hat. I'm not sure how to help you with that. Is there anybody else who has spy device that likes to chirp in when she's not been called for? But yep, this is my finished hat. I love it. I will be making more of these at some point. I might actually see if I've got enough of this left, my pink Surrey, find another yarn and make a fluffy version. I'm not usually one for wearing hats, but I think I will be wearing this a lot, and I will probably wear a fluffy pink one quite a bit in the actual depths of winter. And I will say I will probably end up wearing this when I go to Amsterdam at the beginning of next month, because apparently it's going to be cold and wet, because apparently I can't escape that. If I didn't mention, I live in England, near Birmingham in the West Midlands, and it is once again cold, wet and rainy. Apparently the UK has broken a record for the fact that it has rained every single day so far this year. So yeah. Finished object. And now we shall go into my WIPs. As I said, I've been in a very picky mood. I've not really been settled on one project. The fact this took me one day, basically, once I picked it back up properly, yeah. So I've kind of been picky, jumping between projects. I shall start with this one. This bag was gifted to me by a friend who made it herself. The other 3 bags you're going to see I made, not to sell or anything. I just made myself project bags because I wanted to. But this first project is very, very tangled with yarn. But what on earth has happened there? This first project, in fact, all of the projects you're going to see were parts of my 12 cast-ons. This is my Carlisle raglan by Maddie Mo. Picture, name. All of this can be found linked in the description, so. But this is the beginnings of my Carlisle raglan. It is the collar. It does need to be folded over and sewn down. It is a double thick collar. That's because I misread the pattern. Because of the number of stitches you have to cast on, I was like, okay, I double checked how many stitches I had to cast on. I didn't read one word further than that, because literally after it tells you the number, it says provisionally. So I'm gonna have to sew this down, but that's fine. However, I finished the 1x1 ribbing, which seemed to be taking a year and a day to do, and then realised that I can't get any more progress on this done yet because I need the 3.25mm needle tips. And normally I am perfectly fine swapping needle tips between projects, because I have four projects at the moment that require my 3.25 needle tips. However, one of my other projects that I'm working on is also currently using 3.2mm needle tips, and I'm halfway through the short rows, and I don't feel comfortable removing the needles halfway through short rows. But I shall get to that in a minute. So the yarn I'm using for this is this gorgeousness. It is Purple Orchid by Mothy and the Squid. Not Squiddy and Moth, Mothy and the Squid. I adore this colour. It's so beautiful. I'm looking forward to wearing this. I have a feeling that once I get onto it and start going, I think this is going to knit up really, really quickly. Other than the ribbings that I have to do on a 2.75. Although I might end up getting a new needle for this because... so that was project number 1, which is stalled. I should get on to the project now that I'm halfway through the short rows on, or I've started the short rows at the very least. I'm going to get this out very, very carefully. Oh, literally just started the short rows. I've got 2 done. So this is going to be difficult to show because being partway through short rows kind of means you're like halfway through a... Okay, right. We shall start with the yarn. This is quite unfortunately a discontinued yarn. This is the Rowan Valley Tweed in the colourway Janet's Foss, which is a beautiful green with specks of brown running through it. Apparently, some people think this is blue on the camera. One of my friends says it looks blue. It is actually quite green in real life. I don't know how to get this to show up its actual colour, but this makes it out to be very blue. It is actually more of a green colour. But I have... This is my In Between Dreams cardigan by Miju Knits. The name will be there because apparently I can't remember the names of people. And I've just realised I don't know the name of the designer of one of the other projects I'm working on and don't have any way of checking that on hand. But this is how far I've gotten. I didn't exactly have much done anyway from my first day of cast on. I had 6 rows of garter stitch, but I'm now into the short rows. I picked this up, started working on it. Everything in their mother was conspiring against me to make sure that I had to read through how to set up the short rows 3 times. Because I read through, got everything ready, was about to get going, and my phone rang. Okay, sorted that out, got it all sorted, did some stuff. Realised I didn't remember what I was doing, read through the pattern again, sat down, knitted a grand total of 2 stitches, and my other half called minor emergency. I say minor emergency, it's more like we needed stuff doing that we'd both completely forgotten about that needed to be done. Got all of that sorted, did all of that. Then I put my phone in a different room, sat down and read through the pattern for a 3rd time and got this short rows established. So, yeah. I will probably have to read through it again just to double check that I remember what I'm doing, but we're doing well. We're doing well. I think once I get onto the actual lace pattern for the top of the cardigan, I think this will be fine. As it might be obvious, I put these so that I know exactly where each repeat finishes. That way then, if something's wrong or there's like miscount somewhere, I can fix it there and then rather than have to think back to the beginning of the row. So that's how far I've come with that. Hopefully when I sit down to do this again, nobody will interrupt me, but as I have seemed to have learned, everybody seems to have a camera on me. It's like, oh, she's doing something complicated. We'll call her now. I'm so overdramatic at times, aren't I? But still enjoying this. Still, like, I still love the pattern. I still love the yarn. I just need to sit down and go. Yeah. My 3rd work in progress. My third WIP has seen a little bit. I have pulled out my Tulster tea, which I forgot to put a marker on to know exactly where I was, but I think I've added about an inch onto the yoke of this. It is all quite scrunched up. I think I have a few more rounds or a few more repeats of this set of increases. Then I think I swap to doing about 10 rows where I do different increases on the sleeves and the body over those 10 rows. And then I think I actually separate the sleeves, which will be, once I separate the sleeves, this will literally just be round and round knitting. And since this is a work until I run out of yarn kind of project rather than knit it to a certain length, I don't think this will take me too long to finish once I get to that point. But this is a summer knit, so yeah. And the yarn for this is very, very yarn bathed in the bag, so I'm not going to take the skeins out. But the dark colour for the ribbing and the short rows is Hot Springs, and the pinky colour is Was He Slow? And both of these yarns are from Creative Anarchy in her Borghese base, which is 80% superwash merino and 20% silk. High twist. The high twist is important because it gives it this beautiful stitch definition. It's lovely. I love it. Love it. It's one of my favourite yarns, favourite bases. If she ever decides to stop doing it, I will cry and beg because it's gorgeous. I love it. I do need to buy some more of this for a different project later on in the year. But I should get to that later on in the year when I get to that. So, and the last WIP I'm going to show you, I say that because I have been working on my blanket, which sits upstairs next to my bed. You will probably see that, if not next week, then the week after, because I am almost ready to add in the second cake, so I will show it then. Otherwise, the last project I've worked on is another one of the 12 cast-ons, and it is a pair of socks. So the yarn is Blue Fern yarns, and we have the colours. That has made an absolute mess. Excellent. And the colours we have is Emerald for the main colour and Sea Urchin for the contrast colour. And anybody who's there going, those look like very Batman Joker colours, yes they are. And I have, so these are the Aurora socks. I cannot remember the designer's name. It will be here. Oh, the Tulster tee, that's designed by Rebecca Club. I'm sure it was on the screen. But these are the Aurora socks, and they are this beautiful cable and lace. Well, I think it's more of a cable and a faux cable, but it kind of looks lacy to me. But these are gorgeous. I was drawn to this pattern because the cables run down the heel flap, so it's not a reinforced heel exactly, because the pattern goes right down to the bottom. And I just really liked it, and I am loving these. I am making the second size in the pattern, and I technically modified this pattern ever so slightly, because it's technically a one colour sock, but I've added a contrasting colour for the cuff, and there will be on the toe as well. And because I did that, I added a plain knit round after the ribbing, so the colour wouldn't bleed into each other. I also lengthened the leg by 1 repeat. It says to do 5 repeats of the pattern. Well, technically it says to do 5.5 repeats of the pattern, because of the construction. Once I finished knitting the 5.5 repeats, I looked at it and went, that's not quite long enough for the kind of socks I like to wear. So I added an extra repeat, which made it more the length I tend to go for. And that's basically it. I am basically following the pattern as it says, other than just, you know, a couple of minor modifications. Like, I think a lot of people add contrasting cuffs, heels and toes to socks all the time, even if they're not called for. So can you really call that a modification if you're just adding a contrast? But I adore these. They do look very Joker-esque, and I'm fine with that. Like, green is one of my favourite colours. I think green works really well with like purple and pink. Although these days, if I wear pink and purple, pink and green together, people are like, "Oh, are you into Wicked then?" I've never seen Wicked, like any of it. Never. So I've kind of stopped wearing pink and green at the moment, together anyway. But yeah, I love this. I love green. I think it works really well with purple. And oh, I forgot to mention, the yarn is the yak base, which is 70% superwash merino, 20% yak, 10% nylon, which is making the colours look even moodier than when they're on their non-yak base. I adore these. These bring me so much joy just seeing them, just the colours. I'm looking forward to having these. I don't know how long lasting they're going to be. I've never made myself a pair of yak socks. My partner has a pair, but he's so precious with them that I wouldn't know if they wear through easily. But I love these. I would be tempted to get more of this to make a jumper for myself, or even a sweater vest like in the green with the purple accents, but that's a project for future Sasha to consider, because I wouldn't say I have an overwhelming number of WIPs at this moment in time. I'm quite happy with the WIPs I've got, and because I have so many WIPs, I don't feel the urge to cast on anything new at this moment in time, because I can just pull out a random project bag and go, ooh, pretty, and it feels new and fresh, but I don't have to cast it on because it's already cast on. And project-wise, knitting-wise, that's everything. There is one thing I would like to show. I showed this a couple of weeks ago, and it is a craft project that my partner has completed, and it is this Lego car. He's finished it. It is amazing. I now have to find somewhere to put this. It also has fully openable doors and a... yeah. This brings me so much joy that it's brought him so much joy. Oh, I'm breaking it. Oh. But yeah, so he does not get left out. He has his own craft projects to do. He does other stuff, like he's a bit of a techie, so he builds random things in code. I pretend to understand and just nod along and stuff, so otherwise that's basically everything. I would say I'd go over like reading and watching, but there's no point. Like, I haven't been reading anything. I've not really been watching anything. I've been watching YouTube, catching up on YouTube when I have time. So that's basically it, really. There's not really any life stuff to go over. Like, I have been busy. Like, yeah, there's nothing really to talk about. I live quite a normal, relatively boring life. We're due to go away in a few weeks. That's the most exciting thing, really. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Yarn Hoarder Crafting Podcast. And I hope you'll join me again next week for another rambly episode where there probably won't be a finished object next week, unless by some miracle I manage to finish this sock and the entirety of the second sock. There's not going to be a finished object next week. Nothing else is remotely close to being finished. So yeah. But if you like this episode, I would ask very, very nicely if you would consider hitting the like button, maybe subscribing if you want to see more of me. Perfectly fine if you don't, but I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I hope to see you next week. Bye, guys.